All the music comes in.
Oh,
Oh, we are
fuck.
live.
Hold on. No, hold on.
You're fucking hopeless.
Oh, for fuck's sake. This is an Ask Brothers production. Follow us on Twitter at The Ask Brothers. Get all our content on YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, and SoundCloud at Ask Bros. And if you like what you hear, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. I tried, Darren. I tried to go online today. Right, I woke up in the morning. I did wake up late, and I'm sorry to our band of brothers who watch us.
No one's
that
watching.
I'm late. Yeah, because
You're an hour
we're
late.
not on when we usually would be. So they've all fucked off and having breakfast, having dinner, doing something else. But Darren, you know what I did last night? I went online and I tried to buy a Manchester City jersey because you know Arsenal are obviously dead, Darren. They're dead. They're washed up. They're useless. They're never coming back. This is the end of fucking days. Arnold Schwarzenegger has already been cast into a film called Death of Arsenal, End of Days. It's all a bit stupid out there at the moment, Dazza. It's all a bit crazy. And I know we like to consider you to be the most positive of Arsenal fans. But surely, Darren, surely even you, the most positive of Arsenal fans, must be looking at this window and thinking, surely something, anything could have got done rather than leaving us with an absolutely paper-thin squad for 17 games.
Actually, I'm delighted. I'm absolutely delighted. I'm disappointed we didn't land a striker because, well, I'm disappointed we didn't land the striker that we wanted to buy. But the fact that he didn't want to play for us, fine, off he goes. I'm delighted that we didn't waste our money and our resources on a last minute trolley dash around the supermarket and make another mistake. Do you know what? We've got no cup football left. We're not in the Europa League. We're not in the Champions League. We're not in the League Cup. We're not in the FA Cup. That means we could play with a squad of 14 players for the rest of this season. Doesn't matter. Nobody who was going to come in was going to hit the ground running and do the job that we wanted to do. Nobody was available. We got rid of all of the dead wood. We got rid of our captain and most expensive player. How did we get someone to buy him out of his contract?
Well, we paid him £7 million to fuck off.
Well, yeah, but that's a fucking couple of weeks' wages. That's nothing, honestly, really.
Yeah, Darren, I think you can break this transfer down into 3 or 4 different pieces, right? So you've got the outgoings, you've got the lack of incomings, you've got the strategy for next summer, and then you have the kind of unexplainable incident that happens with Aubameyang. And we'll start with burping up my coffee in the morning. Sorry. We'll start with Aubameyang because this seems to have caused a fair amount of outrage, Darren, outrage within the Arsenal fan base. Now, the transparency around Aubameyang hasn't been particularly clear. We got a quote from Arteta yesterday that came out that was along the lines of, if you're not willing to put in 100% all the time on and off the pitch, then what are you doing here? So I think it can be made pretty, we can fill in the blanks there, Darren, pretty easily. That maybe Oba's head was gone, maybe he wasn't happy, maybe this, maybe that. But had he not had this season, this is the funny thing. Had he not have had this season that he has had, the form slump that he had. And Darren, people seem to forget about the form slump. People seem to forget that we were considerably better without him. People seem to forget that our form turned around when he came out of the team. And people seem to forget or not see the fact that the team unity actually seemed to get considerably better when he came out of the team. It wasn't like there was unrest within the team. There was division in the team, like with Ozil, where you had, factions of the team who were Ozil and factions of the team who were the manager. So I guess, as always, waffling away, Darren, but what do you make of the exit? What do you make of the decision to get rid of him now?
Let me just say, just to preface this, I don't do a lot on Twitter. I don't even read it these days. I listened to a couple of podcasts, which I normally do, and I listened to you, or I watched you on when you made a guest appearance on some other Two Bob show. And I can't really believe the outrage. Oh, I can, of course I can, because it's Arsenal fans. But I just don't really understand the outrage this time. We're having a pretty good season, better than most people thought. And most of people's problems were that we had an overburdened squad full of overpaid players that weren't contributing. And we had a captain that was on 300 grand a week, roughly, and he hadn't played for 2 months. So let's just break that down. Let's start with what you said with the Aubameyang. Played last on December the 6th, having a terrible season, upsetting the apple cart in our squad. Since he's come out of the squad, we've played better. And we managed to save ourselves a whole fucking shed load, 18 months of ridiculous wages for a player that we weren't going to play. This was going to turn into an Ozil situation. I am delighted. I mean, look, can I just say this? Aubameyang, great player, loved him, loved watching him for a long time. Was our leading goal scorer for the last couple of years. Sad to see him go. Sad that we're not going to say goodbye. Sad we can't do all those things, but delighted that he's not our problem anymore. One of the biggest problems we had freeing up money for anybody else to come in and take his place was him. And we've managed to get rid of him to Barcelona. And it will hurt. It will be stabbing the eye when we see him knocking some goals for Barcelona. But he might be happier there. But we bought him when he had a bad reputation for misbehaviour at Dortmund. He towed the line for a little while. We made him captain. This year's not working. It was a season too long. We should never have offered him a bigger contract. And I
should never have given him the captaincy. I think giving him the captaincy was a real death nail for him.
It was It was Xhaka, who the fans decided they didn't want, and he upset everyone. He was the next senior player. It was him or Lacazette, and he used to get the nod to play over Lacazette. No, we shouldn't have given him the captaincy, but we had to give it to someone. Darren,
it's like me at football 3 weeks ago, right? My football team. They gave me the captaincy because the two other captains weren't there, and I got sent off, ejected from the stadium, actually thrown out of the stadium, and then suspended for 2 weeks.
You're a bit of a pork chop.
Certain people, Darren, should never have the captain's armband. You know what, Darren? It just went to my head a bit. I tried to fight a couple of guys. The referee sent me off. I called him a fat cunt. He told me to watch my mouth. I said, why don't you watch what goes into your mouth? He said, why? And I yelled in his face, because you're a dumb fat cunt. And I got sent off, Darren. He threw me out of the stadium, Darren. He said, get out of the stadium.
I doubt if any of your teammates are listening here, but they were probably thinking, why did we give him the captaincy, But for some people, it works. For some people, they grow up. Some people grow a pair. Some people take that responsibility. Some people take on leadership. Some people react in a perfect way. Aubameyang did clean his act up, but Arteta knows, look, we may have a manager who's more dictatorial than Adolf Hitler, but we've got a manager that doesn't, if everyone doesn't buy in, and he's been under Wenger and he's been under Pep Guardiola, he obviously wants to run this club in his fashion. If people don't buy in, he lets them go. So the fact that we have managed to get a player that wasn't playing, wasn't contributing, wasn't sneezing, and wasn't was just taking money from the wage bill then it's a delight that we've managed to get rid of him at minimal cost, and we now have money to spend on somebody else. I think it's a really, I mean, look, how do you rate our transfer window out of 10? I've heard that on a few things I've watched and listened to. How do you rate ours out of 10?
I'll give it a 3.
Yeah, see, I've heard 3s and 4s. I'm going to give it a 7.
Well, mate, I've heard zeros, and I think both. I don't think you can give a transfer a 7 where you don't do what you need to do. So if you were to break it down and you were to say, for the outgoings, what would I rate it for the outgoings, Darren? I rate it a 10. Every one of those players had to go. Every one of those players had no place being here. But we didn't get a huge amount of money for anyone, so you can't rate it a 10. It's not like we cleared the books out and we put 30 odd million in. Incomings, I rate our strategy quite high, because that's what I wanted to see. I said to you on the last podcast, I wanted to see Arsenal go after apex players, and if they couldn't get apex players, I wanted them to keep their powder dry. Simple as that. So on the strategy level, I have no issue with what Arsenal are doing, and I'll round back to that, because when I was on Lee Judge's TV, I actually thought I put it pretty well for a semi-retarded, illiterate, dyslexic human. Darren, I'll say one thing on Aubameyang just quickly. I think Aubameyang has a little bit of Sanchez about him in the way people remember Alexis and the way people are going to remember Sanchez, or the way people do remember Sanchez, and the way people remember Aubameyang. Even when Aubameyang was flying for us, absolutely flying for us, similar to Sanchez, I always thought that he was a bit of a stats padder, in the sense that what he actually gave to the team as a whole was quite minimal, but his stats at the time looked quite good. Now, prior to his FA Cup run, so his last 2 or 3 games for Arsenal in the FA Cup, I was very big on the bandwagon of do not give him a new contract, don't give him a new contract, get him out. Now, he essentially walcotted that contract. Do you remember when Theo was up for his last big contract and they played him at centre forward and he turned into fucking Inzaghi for 6 weeks? So I think the way that people are going to remember Aubameyang, and they're going to look back at his highlights and they're going to remember this player, and look at all these incredible goals. But I'll remember him as quite a wasteful player, Darren, who needed quite a lot of chances to get his goals. I'll remember him as quite a one-dimensional player. And I guess we'll always remember that FA Cup run, which will put him in some kind of light. But I'm not crying that he's coming out of the team, and I'm also not spitting venom saying, well, fuck you, I hope you break your leg at Barcelona. I think I'll end up with almost as you know, I like to be, Darren, quite moderate, but I'll almost end up with quite a moderate outlook on Aubameyang and Aubameyang's time.
Yeah, maybe so. Look, I think when Ozil left the club, I said he wasn't one of the best 20 midfielders, best 10 midfielders at Arsenal I've seen in my time. I know I'm quite old, and I've seen a lot of strikers, a lot of midfielders, and I said that Mesut Ozil wasn't in my top 10.
Who are your best 5 strikers to lace boots for Arsenal?
I was going to say that with Ozil, I didn't think he was in our top 10 midfielders. Yeah. Stop looking at the comments. There's one I want to come back to before we move on. I didn't think Aubameyang was in the top 20 strikers that I've seen at Arsenal. Okay, he wasn't in my top 20.
I think I go back 220 plus goal a season outputs.
Yeah,
I think would put him close. I think would put him close to the top.
You've talked for about fucking 10 minutes without letting me say. I'm giving you my point of view, which is the point of the podcast, is you say something and then I say something, or you could say something and then interrupt me every time I tried to talk. I mean, if you want to do the podcast that way, we can, but it doesn't listen to me. So what I'm saying is that Aubameyang wasn't in my top 20 Arsenal strikers. Probably could go in 25. He wasn't a natural finisher, but when you're playing in a team where we only had one outlet, he was going to get 20 goals a season. It doesn't make me say he's a bad player, but he wasn't, one of the best. I don't cry my eyes out when he leaves the club. And I go back to what I say, it's cost us money. He hasn't played since December the 6th. He didn't buy into the project, and we've managed to release him without spending, without it costing us a fortune that it has done with many other players. So let's put Aubameyang to bed. He's left the company. He's the company. He's left the club. And I am such a corporate man now, aren't I? He's left the company. And we should be happy. We should rejoice that a player that was no part of our plans, that was on a huge wage, has left the company.
Quickly, Darren, as a very, very, very old man who has supported the club since the dawn of time, remove Bergkamp and Henry. Who are your top 5 strikers, not including Bergkamp and Henry?
Oh, well, let me just go through. So John Radford, Ray Kennedy, they were better than Aubameyang, the pair of them. I cried when Ray Kennedy left the club, went to Liverpool. I couldn't understand that.
70s.
Frank Stapleton was better. Let me go through. It was after Stapleton. No, Woodcock, he wasn't. No, let's go through. Ian Wright's miles better. Nicholas Anelka. How many did you want? Sorry, I'm just thinking.
Anelka was maybe the greatest talent outside of Henry that I saw lace boots for Arsenal.
And you got to remember, you said forget Henry and Bergkamp. So if I throw those two in,
what Van Persie? 7, Van Persie 8? Van Persie was a better player than Aubameyang. He's a company who's a better player than Aubameyang.
Yeah, but I hate him. Yes, he was better. Van Persie. I mean, there's lots. What I'm saying is every era of Arsenal that I've watched, Aubameyang was the best striker in the worst side I've ever seen. So that's where I put him. Aubameyang's gone. Can you put up that big message from Digi Scott on the screen? Hello, Digi.
I was impressed this window.
Stick it up.
So I didn't realize Digi was so old. Darren is younger than me. Digi must be in his 80s.
Actually, sir, I didn't see that one. No, put the big one up. I was impressed. What he's saying. I was impressed. This is from Digi Scott. I was impressed this window with our chest out negotiations, not compromising, including overpayments to Barca, and not buying from desperation or outside of the long-term profile. Digi, you might as well come on this podcast and replace me in future weeks, because that is so exactly right. The Arsenal fans are throwing all their toys out the pram at the moment because we didn't buy anyone. We identified a striker who was going to cost us the best part of 60 or 70 million pounds. He was young. He's scoring goals for fun. One of the hottest prospects in world football. And we tried to buy him, and he fucked us off to go to Juventus. So what did we do? Did we then go, oh shit, let's go and spend 300 grand a week and buy somebody who we didn't identify? Now, people would say we should have had a plan B, we should have had a backup. In January, at that sort of level, those players were not available. So rather than make a mistake and go and panic buy, last minute shopping trolley dash around the supermarket, we held our nerve. We didn't sell Nketiah, even though there was money on the table for him. And we have looked at it and said, do you know what? We've got 17 games left. We're only playing once a week, if that, with lots of space in between. Let us relax a little bit and start planning for next season. We've got rid of all the dead wood, so we've got money in the chest, and we can now identify some new targets for the summer. And this plan is still on track. We're playing better than we thought we would. We've got rid of all the 6 players that we got rid of. What did they have? Six starts between them this season?
Ainsley Maitland-Niles had 2 starts, 8 off the bench. Pablo Marie had 2 starts, none off the bench. Callum Chambers had, I think, 1 start, 2 off the bench. I put a thing up on Twitter, Darren, saying, these guys weren't exactly next cab off the rank. The only one that upset me and still continues to upset me is Ainsley Maitland-Niles. But I mean that is what it is, and that's only because of my, I held Ainsley in really high regard. A little bit upset about Callum Chambers. I think getting 2 million for Callum Chambers is poor in the scheme of things. We could have let him go seasons before and got a bit more for him. Mainsley, we could have got 25 million for him the year before if we had have let him go to Wolves. So that there's some strategy stuff around the timing that I think is poor. But to quote one of the guys off Arsenal Vision, or was it off Arsblog? I listened to a couple of podcasts this week, can't remember. They said that this isn't a part of this regime, that these things happening are still part of a hangover from previous regimes, from 2 previous regimes, and some quite big contracts and some pieces of the puzzle that were put together not by Arteta. So I can sort of forgive him for some of those elements. Darren, you sort of talk about the strategy, and I think the strategy is something important that people, they don't look at and they don't want to talk about. I mean, it's a business strategy. Now, like it or don't like it, Arsenal fans, you do get the overarching feeling that this strategy was put in place as in it was a 3-year strategy. Arteta was never going anywhere. Edu was never going anywhere. You feel like they may have presented the board with this compact idea across a 3-year plan and said, this is the level of investment that we want. This is the start point. This is our year 1 intention. This is our year 2 intention. And this is our year 3 intention. And we will be held to account at the end of our process. And the way I explained this when I was on Lead Judges TV was like this. When we signed Tomiyasu, when we signed Ramsdale, when we signed Ben White, I was not enamored with those signings. I wasn't enamored with them. I didn't know who Tomiyasu was. I wasn't fond of Ramsdale. I thought that Bernd Leno was an excellent keeper, and I didn't understand why we were spending so much money on what I thought was going to be a backup keeper. And I thought the money for Ben White was ridiculous. But as time has gone on, we now look at those signings and say that each one of those signings has been a resounding success, which means we have to allow the strategy to play out before we start to make our comments on it. Now, this has been a strategic move from Arsenal. I do not get the feeling, Darren, that this was Arsenal going into the market and Arsenal fans saying, Arsenal have no pulling power. No one wants to come to Arsenal. Everyone looks at the way that Arteta treated Ozil and treated Aubameyang and doesn't want to be here. I honestly don't believe that. I believe that there was a strategic decision made that we had to get this money out. There's a strategic decision made that there was 17 games left and these players on reasonable wages, that money could be reinvested in the next window. And I think with the what's his fucking name? Valachuk. I always fuck his name up. Vlahovic. And I genuinely believe that because Vlahovic was available, we moved our strategy a year forward and said, no, if we can get that guy, he is the apex guy. If we can get him, we have to go in for him now. When we didn't get him, we went right back to where our strategy was before. We didn't all of a sudden shift the strategy, push the boat out, go and release Isak's clause for 90 million euros. The decision, I believe, and the strategy has always been, we need to clear out the players. We need to clear out the wage book. We need to get to next year, to next summer, where I believe, Darren, we will have a series of targets who are available, who we're not trying to get out of contracts. Don't forget, January, you are asking a team in January to have to do business, which is why in January, so much of the time you get disruptive players. You get players who the club doesn't want. That's why a Barca have Aubameyang. He wouldn't have been available, but he's available because he was disruptive. So what I'm rambling on about, Darren, is that you cannot judge what has happened in the January transfer window until you see what happens in the next transfer window. Because
that all makes sense, Max.
£1 million been put aside now for us, £200 million and a load of wages to be able to go up to him and say, there's your 250K a week and there's your 4-year contract. Have your 50 million, have your 60 million.
See, I can agree with most of what you said there. There's 2 things I take exception to. One, that you say you can't judge that window and you judged it as a 3. I mean, you can contradict yourself in the same sentence sometimes. You're judging it as a 3. I'm judging it as a 7. It wasn't perfect. We didn't buy in a striker that we desperately needed. But it wasn't anything. There's not many big signings. Can you really remember outside of Arshavin any really good January signings? They don't happen in January. You know what I mean? They don't generally happen in January. City haven't made huge signings. United, West Ham, nobody is, because of what you've just said. You made a lot of sense in some of what you said. But there isn't big signings in January, and we managed to shift a lot of players who don't play, who are all on 100 grand a week, who were just costing us money. If they're not playing, 6 starts between 6 players, and we've got them out of the club and their wages off the wage bill, then that's all perfect. That's good. There's
Kolasinac was
nothing.
on 160K
Yeah, you got to remember
a
we got him on a
week.
free transfer, so that was the issue, wasn't it? It was a free transfer. The wages were sort of, if you say we bought him for 20 million, then he was on 20 grand a week. It's one of those things.
You know what, Darren? If Kolasinac hits the ground running and he turned into an amazing player, a free transfer and free transfer and 150K a week is a great deal. A gamble worth taking for a guy who was in the Bundesliga team of the year.
Yeah, I mean, say it was. On paper, it was good. It was a good signing. It was the wages didn't matter because we didn't have to pay a transfer bill.
But this is what I mean what I mean, Darren, about hindsight and about actually letting a transfer play out or letting a strategy play out before you can judge it. In the cold light of day, that Kolasinac transfer looks like good business.
The other part of what I don't agree with, I don't think we brought the business forward a year. You say that we brought that plan forward a year. I don't agree. I think the plan is if there is a player that's identified that will absolutely improve our side, the club will make funds available to buy them. And I think that's what they did with Vlahovic, is that we realised that a player that fit the profile, young, scoring goals, great potential, possibility of a sell on value, 5-year contract, 60 million, that all worked. So I don't think we pulled it forward. We just didn't pull that deal off. And that wasn't through anything we did wrong. The player just didn't want to join us. And Arsenal fans are right when we don't have the pulling power that we used to have. Players are going to look and say, well, they're not in the Champions League. They weren't even in the fucking Europa League for the last 2 years. If I was a top player, I wouldn't want to go to Arsenal. So the skill now that Edu and Arteta and the team have to do is to find more Tomiyasus. I mean, that's fairly straightforward. But the transfer window wasn't a failure. Arsenal fans throwing the toys out of the pram because we didn't buy anyone. Who did buy anyone? Was there any big signings? If we'd have just spent stupid money on players and, we've made mistakes. Pepe, the amount of money we paid for Pepe was a mistake. That was the ball to Arteta. That was that agent that we had, I can't even remember his name now, the Kia, whoever it was, who was Pepe's agent. Cherabkin, was it one of his? That was him saying that, I've got this player, you can come and get him, 70 million and he's yours. And Arteta's a young manager thinking, fuck me, yeah, go on, I'll have him. Because you would if the club's offering it. That was bad strategy. Now the strategy is in place. Arsenal fans have to remember that this has been a steady decline for 15 years. It's been a steady decline, and some years under Wenger we decided to go all youth. Not youth that we're buying in, all Hal End boys. That didn't work. We had a whole team of people that didn't work. Then we went and spent lots of money on players. That didn't work. So now
then people wanted us to buy. People used to scream down and bang their drum, go buy Premier League proven players. And we bought Louise, and we bought Czech, and we bought Willian, and they were fucking shit.
Yeah. So let's. I'm not saying this strategy is going to work. You've got a lot of young kids. Their heads might be turned. It's very unlikely that all of these young players will turn into superstars. Ben White included. These are players, Ramsdale included. They may look good for 6 months, then they may fade completely out of life, because that's what happens with a lot of young players. Look at Jack Wilshere, bless him. I know it was a bad injury that fucked him up, but these players, didn't make the potential. So we've got about 8 or 9 of them, and we need 5 or 6 of them to get to the real top level if we're going to get to the next level ourselves. We have to now keep identifying them. We really do have to keep identifying these players, because we've got history, we've got tradition, we've got a big name in football, but we haven't got the pulling power that we had because we've been 8th the last 2 years and may finish there again this year. But don't worry about our squad. The best football I've seen Arsenal play in that period in the last 15 years was against Manchester City, and all of those players are still at the club.
Darren, do you agree that despite this strategy for us being a less hectic, a less shopping cart strategy, and both of us hope, or maybe to some extent believe, that this will pay off in the next season? But do you agree with this? Do you agree with this statement? It is a balls on the line risk and approach, if Edu and Arteta have led this and KSC have led this strategy, it is a balls on the line approach. If we get 1 or 2 unlucky injuries and we finish outside the top 6.
What was the question in there? Sorry.
Basically, if we finish outside the top 6, does this strategy end up becoming fucking stupid? Because with all that money, if we've got no European football, I'm not talking about Champions League football. If we've got no European football and one of, say, Lacazette, Nketiah, or both go down, that this strategy ends up being completely overturned, because with all that money, you don't have any European football to go and bring in any of the top targets, and you're going to have to pay overs in wages to bring people in. Do you agree that that strategy is risky?
Yes, but it's not like we're down to the bare bones. We've still got a fairly decent sized squad. It's not completely bereft of players. We've got 2 goalkeepers, we've got 6 defenders, we've got 6 midfielders, and we've got about 6 strikers. Yes, you can get hurt with injuries, but that could happen. You can lose all your strikers for injury without getting rid of Aubameyang. I think the issue becomes, if it doesn't work next year, if our transfer window in the summer is a failure, then that becomes our problem. But I mean, can I just give you a couple of examples? Leicester City won the Premier League the other year without any big signings. They had a couple of good players, Jamie Vardy, Kante, Schmeichel. They've got some good players. You need good players to win the Premier League. But they didn't win it because they had lots of big name signings. They won it because their manager and the team worked together to become a unit that never got beat. And they went on and kept winning and winning and winning games. So to me, star names are all great, all well and good, but they don't all work out. We spent 75 million on Pepe. That hasn't really worked out. I still hope he will come good. The money we spent on Ozil, the money we spent on Alexis, all these are big name signings that everyone wants, and they haven't worked out. Aubameyang, for one, Lacazette had a really good season and then has trailed off. So, spending the money doesn't always guarantee success. It really doesn't. It's about this team all working together. And Arteta has got a young core of players, some really exceptionally talented players, with a production line coming through from Haaland. And some good scouts, because we picked up some fantastic buys in the summer. Ramsdale, Tomiyasu, Ben White, the year before, Kieran Tierney. Let's not forget, none of these players cost more than 20 odd million. They were, in the scheme of Premiership big clubs, they weren't that expensive. And we've actually played really well this season towards the last 6 weeks, really well. So tell me what's wrong with it. We've got rid of a lot of shit. We've got rid of our biggest paid player. And, we've got 17 games left because we've got no cup football whatsoever. That's enough. There's a big enough squad to last those 17 games and get in the top 4. Toby has joined us. He's in the room.
I saw that you were started a bit late, so I just jumped in and took a gamble to see if you were here.
Jumped in to say hello, Toby. Your beard is looking lush. Yeah, very thick.
Max, can I put a question to you?
Yes.
What do you feel like when your brother is so handsome and you look like a knob?
Yeah, well, I've seen his dick there, and I know that all that handsome can't make up for his tiny little fucking pecker. So when it comes to the schlong, Darren, there's 2 sides of our family. There's the Abrahall side, who notoriously have big willies. And there's the Ware side, who notoriously have small willies. And unfortunately, Toby got a Ware. I got an Abrahall. Therefore, he got the lush beard and the good looks, mate. It's all a formula here, Darren.
I'd like to say happily average and no complaints, and I've got to use it quite a lot in my life. So not too bad. Of course
you would. You're good looking, Max.
I am slightly jealous. I've always been reminded about the massive schlong, but I'm comfortable with myself and my age now, and my former usage, which I did quite a lot. I don't anymore, obviously, because I'm married and I have kids.
Yes, yeah, married. Toby, in the scope of Arsenal, I know you've been a little bit removed from Arsenal. You've been super busy, moved city, changed job, new house, all of that sort of stuff. But in the scope of things and what you've seen, as we move into the next transfer window, Toby, and it looks like we're going to have to sign minimum 2 strikers, so a worldie and a backup. It looks like we're going to have to replace Xhaka, maybe bring in another 1 to 2 backups in midfield, possibly looking at bringing back Saliba, having to sign a backup right back. It seems, Toby, that not only is the next transfer window going to be very important for making sure that we buy these 1 or 2 apex players, but also that as we have now removed the backfill from our squad, as we also expect to probably see El Neni come out of the team and go away as well, it feels, Toby, this transfer window is going to end up being what? An 8-player transfer window to be able to backfill the team back to a Champions League or Europa League loaded squad. Is that strategy smart? And is that going to be very difficult to get done in one window?
I think it will be difficult to get done in one window, but I don't think it's like we didn't try this window. I think that's just the market. So there's
but
less
regardless
money.
of whether we did try or we didn't try, Toby, it's fucking very difficult to bring in 8 players.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it'll put more pressure on us. I think we'll have more of a competitor in Newcastle and other recovering teams. And I also think that teams selling to us can hold us over a barrel more because they know we absolutely need it. So it's going to jack the price up of everything. I'm a little bit in two minds, and you are right about the amount of replacements that we will need, particularly next year. But I do have a foot in Darren's camp as well. We know we only have 17 games. There's players that we haven't used at all, like Pepe. We've got someone like Martinelli that potentially could be the direct replacement within the squad for Aubameyang, who, as much as I'm sad to see him go, wasn't performing and was definitely on the downturn of his career. So I feel like January being a massive disappointment, obviously, but with the returning players that we have, we probably do have the squad to continue with that momentum. So
you see, Max, he's not only got the looks, he's smarter than you as well. I mean, how beautifully eloquent is he? He's just put it over exactly right. It was disappointing.
It's very easy to come in, once every 2 months and sound intelligent for 5 seconds, Darren. It's much harder to do it for an hour a week and, across multiple platforms. It's true.
I'll just continue, boys, but thank you, Darren. Where I didn't enjoy things was I have a bit of an obsession, a bit of a disliking obsession for Cedric. So for the way we play, and I did watch the last game against Burnley, for me, it showed how much we miss Tomiyasu when he's not there, because our play is so based around him, and even Ramsdale's distribution to him, his energy, his defense, the lopsided way we play. To have Cedric as a replacement, and I know that Cedric didn't replace him in that Burnley game, but to lose Chambers for nothing and just basically tear up his contract and say, you can go for free, for him to go and be the same backup player at Villa, where he covers centre-back and right-back, you had a like-for-like body shape, skill set replacement, and you've kept this overpaid little dude from Southampton, who we only got because of his player agent, and he's still there. So for me, of course, the Mainsley thing was a little bit silly, I think. You just keep him until the end of the window and let him go on the last day to Roma. And the second thing was that Chambers was good cover and enabled us to play in the same way. All right?
Yeah, I think
we have solutions everywhere else. Of course we
feel that way about El Neni, Toby. I feel that way about El Neni. Everyone wanting to get El Neni out of the door. I think El Neni is an absolutely perfect squad player. And they're talking about El Neni going to, Saudi Arabia and things like that. You know, he's not going somewhere better. I'd have no issue if El Neni didn't go in the summer. I would have had no issue if Chambers didn't go. You know, I think
Can I
they're
just
both
say that,
absolutely
but
fantastic squad players.
to answer the point, about Cedric, look, I've got a bit of a man crush on Chambers, like you have on Mainsley. I mean, I've never seen. I've watched a lot of Ainsley Maitland-Niles and never seen what people talk about. Had a good season at left back. His concentration's terrible. He wants to play as a central midfielder, and we've played him there, and he hasn't been very good. So let that one go. Please, just let that one go. We wanted him to be good. We hoped he was going to be good. He wasn't any good. He'll be coming back from Roma because he's not very good. But Cedric, the issue with Cedric is that, and you answered your own question, Tobes, is that he's overpaid, little whatever you called him. He is. So we can't sell him because he was one of the mistakes that we made, and one of Arteta's mistakes that he's made. We overpaid for a player, so now we can't get rid of him. And that's where, Chambers, I was very, very sad to see him go. But you can't say, why can't we get rid of Cedric and keep Chambers? Because Chambers was, somebody wanted him, could afford him. We can't let Cedric go. No one's going to pay his wages. No one's going to pay £120,000 a week to take Cedric off our hands. They're just not, even if we gave him away as a free transfer. So we couldn't do it. So, it's part of the mistakes in the past that we're trying to correct now. And Cedric is one of them. And Cedric isn't a terrible player. I'm with you. He doesn't fit the style.
Doesn't fit the system.
He puts in a better cross than most of the players on that park.
If we were still playing in a 3 and pushing wing backs way up the pitch, or even playing in that system where Xhaka kind of dropped in and the wing backs got miles forward, Cedric would be a good player. I remember saying last season that I preferred Cedric to Bellerin, because I thought both of them couldn't fucking defend, but at least Cedric had a cross at the end of it, whereas Bellerin seemed to have no end product. So it is unfortunate. What I would say is if we do get into Europa, and I still think we'll get into Europa, I think Cedric will be absolutely passable in the early rounds of Europa, in the early rounds of Cups and stuff like that. Then unfortunately, he's going to be the guy. So he was essentially the last guy bought in on a dumb contract, which means he's going to be the last guy out on that dumb contract.
I think as well, I think we've just got a bit in our heads, the same as you all have with El Neni. I was singing El Neni's praises for years. I think we've got the same thing with Cedric. We've decided we don't like him because he's been asked to do a difficult job. Tierney, since we've asked Tierney to become a left back and actually defend, he's been half the player that he was. When we asked him to go tearing down the wing, get out of position and put crosses in, he was brilliant. And Cedric the same. It gives us an option if we want to play 3 at the back to have those 2 as actual wing backs and then go in and cross the ball. But we've never had a centre forward that could head the ball. So we've it was a strategy that didn't work. I actually think if we'd have got Vlahovic, who was 6'3", I think that would have given us an option to play a Cedric and a Tierney as attacking wingers. But then we in the last 18 months, we've found that we've got Martinelli, who's been superb on the left wing. Emil Smith-Rowe has been superb wherever he's played. Saka, superb on the right wing. Suddenly, we don't need those attacking wing backs like we did. Let's not write off Cedric. He's a decent player. He's not a great player.
And you know what? If you manage to replace Granit Xhaka with a multi-directional, big-engined midfielder who gets up and down, all of a sudden,
Thomas Partey.
All of a sudden, you can start to push Tierney further forward because you've got someone who can actually get in and start to cover.
This is back to my. You can spend a lot of money and it doesn't always work. I hope Thomas Partey turns into a great player, but in my year and a half, however it's long he's been playing for the club now through his injuries, I've seen him have one good game.
Two.
Maybe there's 2. Maybe I'm
I agree.
Blinked.
Man U and City. Yeah.
Well, against City, he was the missing link. Suddenly we looked world beaters. Suddenly we looked like we could be competing at the top end of the Champions League.
I remember when Cazorla did it against City. Like, same thing. One game doesn't make.
No, but Cazorla was week in, week out. Cazorla was the best player on the pitch for us most games he played.
No, I know, but
that was the Cazorla game.
Yeah, but I remember that moment when we put him in there and we were all like, "Oh well, what's that?" Look, boys, I think no matter what, and I said this on the podcast with Dan Potts last week.
Can I just ask you a question, Max? Why have you mentioned that podcast that you were on 3 times in this show? Are you so desperate for people to go and listen? Go on, he's on at 1 hour, 6 minutes in Dan podcast. Dan's, what's it called? You mentioned it 3 times. You didn't mention our
was-
podcast 3 times when you were on his.
Anyway, I think that if you look at it, there is no way of judging anything until we get into the summer. That's the bare bones of it. We can't judge whether going into the last 17 games with the amount of players that we have is going to be a smart strategic move or a risky strategic move until we get to the end of it. You're not going to be able to judge whether having to bring in 8 players in a transfer window is going to be a smart move or a bad move if they're already identified, if they're not identified, until we get into it. Unfortunately, or fortunately for Arsenal, a strategy has been put in place. That strategy has been accepted by the ownership, and we need to let that strategy play out until the end of its lifespan, which might have been a 3-year plan, for us to be able to make the decisions on whether it's good or bad. And all
Can you
fucking
imagine?
standing around on Twitter and acting like you're going to go fucking support someone else, and your club's trash and your club's dead, and everything is fucking shit. Everything is shit.
What's
Can
the
you
point?
What's the
Can
point?
you
What's the point of
imagine?
being a fan?
Can you imagine what that training ground was like? You've got the captain who's obviously taking the piss. Mainsley Maitland-Niles apparently was very down, negative. You've got players that aren't playing every week, hardly getting a look in like Pepe and things. All of those players we got rid of in the last, in this transfer window. They weren't adding, they weren't playing. They must have been miserable. They're not improving us.
And
You know,
reports were, Darren, that Chambers was particularly unfit, below the standard that you would expect a premiership player. So if that's the reason why they
Well, I heard
decided-
that at the start of the season. I don't know
Yeah.
about how it
he
went
may, he
on.
may
but
have, he may have.
he missed his opportunity, and Tomiyasu came in and stuck his willy in him and said, that's it, son. Now that's my spot. So
Yeah.
and I'm the same as Darren. I really like Chambers as a player because I thought he was technically quite complete, and he just never got. You remember when he came in when he was very young and he ended up playing centre back for England. That's how well he played at that time. When Koscielny went off injured against Atleti, Chambers came on and we became better. We became a better team. And when we were playing a back 3, he was our best central defender for a period of time because of his distribution ability. But every time he got injured or something had happened, and it's just the way it is in football. So, it is what it is. But, I am sad to see him go more than others. But it ain't that bad. We could consider some hypotheticals here. Lacazette, you would almost be at the point where you just give him a 1-year rolling contract, sort of NRL style. You keep the old guy. He's good leader. He works his ass off. He doesn't score many goals anymore, but he brings others into it. If you get a kick-ass worldie, hopefully someone tall who can head the ball, so we have
And bring
a
back
couple of
Balogun. And bring back Balogun from Middlesbrough.
Yeah.
There's
If he does well, I mean, I don't even care if Balogun has another loan and Eddie remains third choice. I don't have a problem with that. I know everyone's decided Eddie's no good.
Eddie will walk on a free.
Anyway, whatever. Let's not have that conversation. So if we get that player in, like Darren was saying, El Neni's not that bad as a 4th choice. I actually will say right here, I reckon next season we'll start again with Xhaka and Partey. And we probably won't get anyone better because there will be, not only are they good as a pair and functional and the right age, yes, they both make errors, but they're certainly not the worst. We will find out that we will have other areas of the squad that we need to spend the money on more, and they'll probably remain. And if you started next season with Xhaka, Partey, Lokonga, and say you get El Neni in, or one of them moves around in that rotation and you get another one in, fine. It's not the worst. It's not the worst squad.
I think the problem there is, Toby, is you are meant to be kicking on and you are meant to be progressing. And what you're talking about is remaining stagnant. And that
it ain't FIFA is
Toby,
my point.
I know it's not FIFA, but listen, that can't be a strategy towards success. That's a strategy towards the mediocrity of being a 4th, 5th, or 6th team. And I agree with you, Toby. But if we stand still and Newcastle move forward and Villa move forward and other clubs around us move forward, what you're proposing and what you're saying is acceptable, it doesn't maintain us, and that is the difference. The difference is that the Premier League does not stand still around you, which means you eventually have to look at either moving on Xhaka, or I would quite happily, Toby, bring someone in and let him perform better than Xhaka.
For sure, and that's what I said.
Let him dethrone Xhaka.
And there's plenty of games, and we know you can have leaders that don't play all the time.
I don't think we're stronger if you take Xhaka out of the squad. But you need to bring someone in who's going to have the possibility of being better than him and possibly taking his first.
Can I have one rebuttal with that? And Darren, I know you're trying to say something. One rebuttal is because of our age demographic that we have chosen, all of our players will be better next season. So your Lokongas, your Smith Rowes, your Odegaards, your Sakas, all of those players will all improve. Your Ben Whites, your Gabriels, they're all going to be better next season. So we have the like a new transfer type of thing because of the players' progression. So I don't think we are, and we've already seen that with us, we're not going to be able to buy our ways out or buy our way towards progressing those super clubs. I just don't think it's going to happen. So our model needs to remain intact, and we need to cherry pick the right players at the right time. Darren.
Well, I was just confused when I listen to you, Max, sometimes, because what you're saying, sometimes, we're doing what we said. You banged on last year, we needed somebody to partner Xhaka, and Xhaka was a great player. Xhaka could be a really good player. We just needed someone good alongside him, and then he's not good enough. So we brought Thomas Partey. The best performance we've had this season was with Partey and Xhaka. Xhaka in the European Championships last year was one of the best players in the tournament. We have two solid... We have two. He is consistent. Gets sent off regularly. Gets booked regularly. Makes bad tackles regularly. There's some huge consistencies with that man. But the game against Manchester City was with those two, and then we brought in Sambi Lokonga, who has the potential to challenge those two for their place. So that's already in place. I mean, I would like an upgrade on Jack. I'd like an upgrade on Partey. I see them both exactly the same at the moment. Both can be a little bit disappointing, but when they play well, we are really, really good. We just got to get those two playing well. And we're forever saying, let's replace him. Well, we bought in Lokonga. Looks like he's a great footballer, but he's a year or two off being where we need him to be. But the way we're playing, with him now supporting those two, sorry, that's my phone as well. But the way we're supporting, all our phones going on. The way we are building that squad, we've done exactly what you asked. You wanted somebody to play alongside Xhaka, we got Partey. You wanted us to bring in someone to challenge those two, we brought in Lokonga and Odegaard. We are doing those things. I'm actually really happy with the way he's building his squad. I really am,
Yeah, and I agree with all of those things, and I agree that we are moving in a positive direction and that the moves we have made are positive. I think that the strategy that has been put in place appears to be a strategy that we can start to see how that would evolve. So I can see Arsenal's path out of this. What I will say, Darren, is the two arguments are defined by where you see your club and what you see your club and what you want them to do. So if you want to be a Champions League club touching fourth place...
I want us to win the Champions League.
Well, I don't believe that the strategy we have in place right now will deliver us a Champions League, Darren. I don't. Because I don't think that you can catch up.
Unless we get an oligarch who's got a shed load of money and financial fair play goes out the window, then that's not going to happen. So what do we have to do? We have to build from the start. Go back to FIFA. You're starting with Swindon Town in the 4th division, and you've got to slowly build it up. You can't just, when you're manager at FIFA in Division 4, go and spend 600 million
and
unless
Darren,
you've got a cheat code. And we haven't got a cheat code. We haven't got an Abramovich.
I'm fine with it. Darren, I'm fine with it.
So how do we get into the Champions League? How do we win the Champions League?
I think football is broken, Darren, not Arsenal.
How do we win the Champions League?
I agree. Well, I don't think we do, and I think there's no point jumping up and down and saying, "Oh, I fucking hate Arsenal. You're so fucking shit. I'm a winner," Because the only way you do that is with money and with an oligarch, with a nation state. So it ain't going to
Because
happen. So
football's
we need
broken.
to enjoy our club for what it is.
Which
and I think
was my,
everything
which
that
was
we
my
have,
point, Toby.
Yes,
which was my point.
exactly.
I am
So
happy. I'm happy with an FA Cup run. I'm happy with
I'm
us.
not. I want to win
I'm
the
happy-
Champions League. So
No,
how do
but
we get there?
there's a
How-
difference. Darren,
how do we get
Toby,
there?
Toby and I
How do we
support.
get there?
Toby and I support a rugby league team that was
Oh.
the best team in the world in the mid-90s, and they have been utter shit for 20 years. And we finally got to a grand
30.
final, and we lost the grand final. So we are experienced, Darren, in fucking loving a club, despite that club having no chance of getting to the top. So we had to enjoy things like, would our team make it into the top 8, which is the equivalent of the top 6 in English football? Would they make it into the top 8? We loved our team, we supported our team, and we still got up and we still screamed for them. It is not going to make me not support Arsenal.
All right, let me
if this
simplify.
strategy doesn't deliver Champions League wins and Premier League wins.
Let me simplify my question. All right, because obviously it's too difficult. How do we win the Champions League?
We buy our way to it like every other fucking
You
club in
just
the world
shut
does.
the fuck up for 30
I'm answering your
seconds.
question.
I haven't finished the question. How to win the Champions League when we're not even in it? So surely, baby steps, the first thing is to get in it. Okay? This isn't a plan that we're putting together at the moment to win the Champions League. This is a plan to get back into the Champions League. It's the first step. All right? We're looking at a plan where we've made so many mistakes. We've been on a steady decline for 15 years. We have drawn a line in the sand. We are removing the ridiculous wages we were paying players who weren't delivering. We have got a young side that in 5 years' time, if we can keep those players and they continue to improve, could be world beaters. Okay, the first step is to get us into the Champions League. So that is what we are doing. At the end of next season, which was the 3-year plan, we have to be in the top 4 to qualify for the Champions League. Then you can attract better players, you have more money coming into the club, and you can add to that squad. Okay, you can't do it now. We haven't got an owner that's going to spend the money. Financial fair play prohibits us getting there because we're not even in the Europa League. So you can't justify spending hundreds of millions of pounds, even if we wanted to. And we are still spending more money than our rivals. So let's get off their backs. It's a 3-year plan to get into the Champions League. And then I'm sure the plan will be another 3 to 5 years to win it. Yeah, that's the plan. We've gone from an 8th place team. Let's look in 8 years' time and maybe we'll be back at the top table. That's what I'm hoping for.
And I think everything that you said, Darren, is very, very logical. And I think it all makes sense. My fear is I don't believe that the Arsenal fan base, not us, in fact, I don't even know whether it's the wider Arsenal fan base that's crazy or just the loudest part of the Arsenal fan base that's crazy. I don't believe that they will accept that timeline off the back of 15 years of what they perceive as failure. But Darren, I would rather do it the right way. I'd rather do it the Arsenal. I'd rather do it the Arsenal way.
Take this transfer window out of the argument because we're all disappointed that we didn't land a big player. We're all disappointed that we didn't land, even if we got another good Tomiyasu. Yeah, we didn't get anybody. So we're all disappointed. I'm sure Arteta is disappointed. I'm sure Edu is disappointed. I'm sure Kroenke is disappointed because we wanted to add to our squad in this window. We didn't. But we are playing very well at the moment. We are playing some really good football and we are competing for the top 4, which none of us thought we would be at the start of the season, except me. So, you know, the fans in the stadium are still 100% behind this club, more than they have been for years, because we've got people we're enjoying watching football, players who are putting that shirt on and working their nuts off for the badge. That is the difference this year, because they're a young, keen, committed side that are believing in the manager's plan and they're all working together for it. And when you don't fit in with that plan, you get out of this side. You're not in this side anymore, captain or anything. Toby,
can I say as well, everyone that we have got rid of now and our entire decline over the last 15 years, we have been buying sloppy seconds. Cast-offs. So even the big players you mentioned before, Dirty Sanchez, you know, who else did you mention? Ozil was a sloppy seconds cast-off as well. Madrid. So we have been picking up players who have made it, not quite made it, lost their motivation, and come to a cushy club on big wages. So when you say players playing for the badge and fans getting behind, it's not difficult to get fans behind you if you love the club as much as a fan does. If you're an overpaid twat who isn't showing that emotion, that desire on the pitch, and body language is everything for fans, you know, if you're avoiding tackles, trotting around the pitch, showing poor body language, you're not going to get that. Or you're a maverick, arrogant renegade like Alexis Sanchez was, who played for himself and not the club. So we are in a good place of progression. There is no point competing for the cast-offs anymore. You know, I'm so glad we didn't go and get a player like Coutinho and then fuck Odegaard in the ass because, you know, you've just completely ruined his pathway.
Yeah.
You know,
Willian,
so
David Luiz, yeah.
all of those, you know, and I had those in my head, and I lost them. Obviously, I was feeling for you guys to back me up. So it's really good that we've stopped doing that. They're always on high wages, those players. You know, absolutely, we needed a striker. We needed a connecting striker, a striker that could head the ball for when a game happens, like a Burnley or something like that, and there's no way through except round and above. And utilizing players like Tierney and, you know, dare I say Cedric and players like that, because you have a plan B. So that's what I would be wanting to see. And we're progressing slowly. There is a plan in place. We're all disappointed, yes, but the goal just has to be the Champions League. And as a secondary prize, at least the Europa League, and we can move from there.
Yeah.
Okay, boys, we've done an hour.
I'll just see. Sorry, I've just seen. Yeah. Hello, Russ. Russ, by the way, Russ Morgan, one of our regulars. I just saw there, Sanchez played for himself. Ridiculous comment. He left everything out on the pitch every game. Some people really liked him. I thought we had 4 seasons with us, 2 really good, 2 really bad.
I thought he was a cunt and disliked him immensely. But each to their own. Boys, we've done an hour. You know, we like to finish off with an hour. I will leave us with these thoughts. I do not think that what has happened in this transfer window is a disaster. I think that in business, you have to put in place strategies, and those strategies have to be seen out until the end of that journey. We will see what that journey is. As Arsenal fans, what we need to come to terms with, and Darren put this very eloquently, is that this piece of the strategy that's going on right now is not the strategy to get us winning the Premier League. It's not the strategy to get us winning the Champions League. I fundamentally agree with everything Darren said, that this is a strategy to get us back to the Champions League. Do I believe that that strategy would need to change to deliver us more success at the top level of football? Absolutely. Do I believe that's because the Cronkies are broken? Not particularly. I think football's broken. I think football has become at the highest level a soulless, money-based approach. And unless you're willing to reach into your soul and cut it out and give it to the devil, I do not believe that you can build from within, buy young players and develop them and win at the highest level. I know Leicester did it. I know Arsenal have done it in the past, but football doesn't exist in that realm anymore. And that is maybe the saddest thing of all. Our tribalism doesn't stop. We go to bed an Arsenal fan, we wake up an Arsenal fan. Just because your transfer window is trash doesn't mean that you're going to throw it out, go buy a Manchester City jersey and stop turning on the television. So please, Arsenal fans, stop being a pack of petulant little cunts. Get off fucking Twitter. And as I said last week, go on a holiday. Pour yourself a glass of wine, get a fucking blowjob. Because guess what? We're playing Wolves next week and we're going to win 3-1. Good night. I've never pressed the button on time.
This is an Ask Brothers production. Follow us on Twitter at The Ask Brothers. Get all our content on YouTube, Facebook, Spotify and SoundCloud at Ask Bros. And if you like what you hear, don't forget to smash that subscribe button.